NNHE called me unnatural, a woman who dared to carry too many lives, as if the 9 miracles growing inside me were a curse he couldn't bear. NNHell. When I told David the first was pregnant with multiples, I expected his face to light up with the same joy that was bursting in my chest. For 3 years we'd fought through the heartbreak of infertility, endless doctor visits, hormone injections, and the crushing silence of negative tests. So when the ultrasound revealed 9 tiny heartbeats flickering on the screen, I felt like I'd been handed a miracle wrapped in starlight. My hands trembled as I laughed through tears, reaching for David's hand, but his face drained of color, his eyes wide, with something closer to fear than wonder. 9? He whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the ultrasound machine, as if the screen were broadcasting a nightmare. The doctor, beaming, explained the rarity of such a pregnancy, calling it a medical marvel. But David shook his head, muttering, "This isn't normal. This isn't what we planned." When I squeezed his hand, seeking reassurance, he pulled away, his fingers slipping from mine, like sand. That moment, the first fracture in our shared dream, marked the beginning of a journey that would transform my miracle into his nightmare. Carrying 9 babies was a physical and emotional crucible that tested the limits of my endurance. By the 3rd month, my body felt like a fragile vessel stretched to its breaking point, and strict bed rest became my world. Confined to our bedroom, I relied on David for everything: meals, trips to the bathroom, even adjusting the pillows that propped up my swollen frame. At first he rose to the challenge with a quiet determination, bringing me trays of carefully prepared food, reading aloud from pregnancy books, and reassuring me with soft smiles. But as the weeks dragged on, his patience frayed, his comments grew sharp, tinged with resentment. "Normal women don't have 9 babies, he'd say, his voice low but cutting. "This whole thing feels unnatural." One evening, as I lay surrounded by medical pamphlets, he suggested selective reduction, his tone clinical, as if discussing a business decision. The idea of choosing which of our children to let go horrified me. These were our babies, our miracles, each heartbeat a promise we'd fought for. But to David, they were becoming a burden, an abnormality he couldn't reconcile with the life he'd envisioned. In NBY 7 months, David's withdrawal was unmistakable. He started staying late at work, claiming deadlines and meetings, coming home long after the streetlights glowed outside our window. When he was home, he was a shadow of the man I'd married, irritable, distant, his words clipped. One evening, as I struggled to put on my shoes for a doctor's appointment, my belly too swollen to bend, I asked for his help. His face twisted with frustration, and he exploded. "I can't do this anymore," he shouted, his voice echoing in our quiet home. "Look at you, you're like some kind of science experiment gone wrong. This isn't what I signed up for." His words sliced through me, sharper than the constant ache in my back or the pressure in my swollen legs. Tears streamed down my face, but he didn't soften. "I need air," he muttered, storming out. He didn't return until dawn, leaving me alone with my fears and our unborn children. That night, I realized it wasn't just the pregnancy he was struggling with. He was repulsed by it, by me, by the life we were creating together. NNTHE birth was a grueling, 18-hour ordeal that pushed me to the edge of my strength. A team of 12 medical professionals worked tirelessly to deliver our 9 babies safely, their voices a steady hum of encouragement through the haze of labor. When the first baby's cry pierced the air, then the second, the third, and on, my heart swelled with a love so fierce it drowned out the pain. I kept glancing at David, desperate for a glimpse of the joy I felt, but he stood in the corner of the operating room, his face pale, his arms crossed tightly. As each baby was placed in an incubator, the medical team marveled, their cheers filling the room with warmth. "A miracle," they called it, their voices bright with awe. But David's eyes were fixed on the floor, his jaw tight, and when the 9th baby arrived he whispered, "This is insane, completely insane." His words were a cold weight in the room, a stark contrast to the celebration around us. In that moment, as I lay exhausted but elated, I saw a man who couldn't share in the miracle that had redefined my life. The first weeks with 9 newborns were a whirlwind of chaos and love, a relentless cycle of feedings, diaper changes, and stolen moments of sleep. My body ached, my mind fogged with exhaustion, but every tiny hand that grasped my finger filled me with purpose. David, though, moved through our home like a reluctant guest. He helped with the basics, warming bottles, folding burp cloths, but his actions carried a heavy air of resignation. He changed diapers with a grimace, as if the task were beneath him, and feed the babies with a mechanical detachment. One afternoon, as I nursed 3 babies at once, my arms trembling from the effort, he dropped a bombshell. "People are talking," he said, his voice low and bitter. "They're calling us a freak show, the woman who had 9 babies. They're comparing you to that Octomom woman." His words stung, not because of the gossip, but because of the disdain in his eyes. "These are your children," I said, my voice breaking. "Our children." He shook his head, his gaze cold. "No, this is your thing, this is what you wanted." In that moment, I saw the truth. He was ashamed of our family, of me, of the miracle I cherished. In 3 months after the babies were born, David's distance became a wall I couldn't breach. He barely helped anymore, spending his evenings locked in his office, or out with friends. One night he sat me down, his face a mask of resolve. "I've been thinking," he said, avoiding my eyes. "This isn't working. This whole situation, it's not normal. You're not the woman I married. You're obsessed with these babies, and it's just too much." My heart pounded as I stared at him, the weight of his words sinking in. "They're our children," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. "They need both of us." He shook his head, his voice flat. "They need you. You're the one who wanted this. You refused to reduce the pregnancy. This is your choice, not mine." His words were a blade, severing the last threads of our marriage. I sat there, surrounded by the soft coos of our babies, realizing the man I loved had chosen to see our miracle as a mistake he couldn't live with. David moved out the next week, his suitcase packed with a finality that left me hollow. He said he needed space to think, but the divorce papers that arrived 2 months later told the real story. He cited irreconcilable differences and requested minimal custody, agreeing to child support but little else. When I called him, sobbing, begging to understand how he could abandon our children, his words were a final blow. "Those aren't normal children from a normal pregnancy. You chose to have 9 babies, you chose to be a freak show, now you live with it." The line went dead and, with it, any hope of salvaging our family. He walked away, leaving me alone with 9 beautiful, healthy babies who would grow up without a father. Not because he couldn't be there, but because he chose not to be. He called me unnatural for giving him 9 miracles, but I call him unnatural for turning his back on them. Now, as a single mother, I face the chaos of raising 9 children alone. Every sleepless night, every shared giggle, every milestone, is a testament to the love that fills my heart. They are my miracles, and I'll carry them forward, no matter the cost.